Good morning, YouTube. Today we're going to talk about why you should not buy a supercar as an investment.
So are you recording all of the nefarious activities?
If you're new to the channel, my name is Dan and that is Josh, and we own a dealership, NG Supercars, and we also sell parts and services through our website, normalguysupercar.com. One of the top questions, in fact, it's probably the most asked question we get when people are looking to buy supercars from us is it going to lose money or am I going to make money on it? So people always want to try and make money on the car, and I get it. Like, it's pretty awesome. Hey, I owned a Ferrari for a couple years and made money. That's sweet.
This question was not nearly as common before COVID, by the way.
Yes.
It's like changed the way people are thinking about this stuff. Rightly so, but at the same time, it's does not holding true anymore.
So many of the supercars and just collector cars, sports cars, whatever, went up in value, and so everyone thought they were a genius, and it became this like, oh man, we're gonna make money on these cars, it's gonna be awesome. That's not really historically always true. In fact, it's usually not true. So we're gonna talk about some of the things of why it's not true, and even if the car kind of holds its value, why you're still probably losing money and it's not a good investment. Traditionally, cars depreciate. You buy it and then you own it for a few years, you drive it some, and then sell it for less. But obviously, with rare cars and specialty cars and supercars, it's not exactly always the case. So Ferraris in particular tend to have about a 10-year depreciation cycle, I'm going to say, plus or minus a bit. You buy it brand new, it holds its value really good until the next model comes out. Then they start to fall, and then once they hit about 10 years-ish, plus or minus again, they kind of stop and they flatline, and then usually they start creeping back up, because once they get to like 15, 20 years old, the people who grew up seeing those as kids now can afford to buy them, and they start buying them and scooping them up. And they, of course, there's only so many of them out there, and they're not making any more of them, and people keep crashing them or whatever, and only these ones are in good, condition, whatever. There's a lot of things that go into it. Plus 10 years-ish, they can start to go up, but they don't always, and it's usually more of the rare ones and all these exceptions to the rule. It's not a really guaranteed thing, and even if it does go up, there's a lot of other factors that cut into the increased value.
The other thing too that people don't really think about but need to is the maintenance on these cars. The newer ones, not so much, but the older ones, a little bit more. You know, if you're buying a car for an investment, which you shouldn't, by the way, and you're in your mind, you're like, this is an investment. Okay, that's great, but how much is that investment costing you a year to keep on the road? Like, what's your expense to do that? And you have to factor that in if you think your car is going to go up. And if you buy a specialty Ferrari or something, it does go up. You still have maintenance costs on that you have to think about. That's just something that you have to do in order to maintain the value on that investment. Because if you don't, and you go to sell that later on, and people are like, well, where's the service records? Well, I didn't really do anything for the last 5 years I've had it. Well, there goes 20% of the value or something. So you do have to keep up on that.
And of course, the irony is, like, the more you drive it, the more maintenance it potentially needs, the more you have to spend, but the more depreciation it has.
Right.
And so, like, there's this vicious cycle of, so what ends up happening is you end up having a mentality of, I don't want to drive it because it's an investment, right? So the more I drive it, the more I have to spend on maintenance, the more I have to spend, or the more I lose on depreciation. So you end up having this thing that you don't get to enjoy, and its purpose is now to make money, not to be a car, which is what it's manufactured for.
I don't have a problem with people trying to do that. I really don't.
Sure.
If that's how they enjoy their car, good for them. You really, really got to know what you're doing and really have a good plan in place before you try to do that.
Speaking of plans, no matter how good your plans are, you can't predict the future. So it doesn't matter what you think happened today or yesterday or COVID or whatever.
Yeah, speaking of, you can't time the market. The market trends change over time. So at one point, the 458s were really popular. Everybody wanted 458s, and they shot up like crazy in value. They were, $220 for a regular 458, nothing special about it. And then the market shifted, and all of a sudden people are like, maybe I don't want a 458 anymore. Maybe I want to do a 488, a turbo car instead. And then, the market kind of shifted. And that's very unpredictable. One day some car may show up in a movie or something, and everyone's like, oh, I forgot about those. And all of a sudden everybody wants it. Or maybe Daddy Doug talks about a certain car, and he's like, oh, everybody loves this car. This is a great one. And then everyone's like, well, maybe I should buy one of those. And then all of a sudden they go up 20% overnight. You just never know.
Yeah, and speaking of other costs, don't forget you have to insure these things. And insurance on a supercar is not cheap. Let's say you're spending $2,500 a year, which is about what we spend in Texas for insuring a Ferrari. You multiply that by 5 years, and now you've spent almost $10,000. So add that into your costs. And also don't forget, if you're truly an investor, you have to always weigh in what are some of your opportunity costs. What are some other things that you could take that money and use to make money with? I'm going to say most people can probably figure out a better return of investment with something else other than cars that has less risk than cars. Because these aren't, keep in mind, these aren't liquid, right? Like you have to sell it, and to sell it could take months in some cases, and you have to deal with all this stuff. It's not like, buying a stock where you can just be like, sell,
Yeah,
done.
Yeah, very illiquid market. Your opportunity cost is very high. So you have to go into it with a mindset. Maybe if you're diversifying, let's say
Sure.
You've got a lot of money and you've got, investments everywhere. Maybe a car is one of those. I wouldn't make it your primary one. We see a lot of guys, or I have, Dan has too, that put their whole net worth in a supercar and they have nothing else. And then the door gets dinged, or you get rear-ended in traffic and all of a sudden your car's worth 30% less. Maybe you owe more than it's worth on it at this point, and then you're just in a nightmare situation, and you don't want to have to deal with that.
So another thing to keep in mind is this is a large physical asset, right? So you have to put it somewhere. You have to have a garage. You have to have it probably plugged into a battery tender. You can't just like shove it in, like Joe's storage bin. And these are Ferraris, right? If you don't have climate control, your leather is going to shrink. It's going to get sticky buttons. It's going to, so all of these things are also additional costs and additional concerns and things to worry about, frankly. I mean, your kid might go out there and accidentally, ding the car with their scooter or something. I mean, like I'm almost at that point where like, oh, stay away from the car.
You get a door ding or something on a Ferrari and you have to have it painted for some reason. It's a nightmare. Now you have paintwork on your car. Potentially it goes on the Carfax if you're not careful. It's just, it would suck.
Personally, if you're buying a supercar as an investment, I think it's a terrible idea. But you can buy it with maybe a mindset of, I'm buying a car I'm going to enjoy, and hopefully it's not going to lose me a ton of money. And I think that's the right attitude, right? Is expect to lose money, but expect not to lose a ton of money. It's not like buying my wife's Mini Cooper, where by the time we sell it, it's going to be worth like $2,000, right?
Worthless.
Like it's going to depreciate like 98% by the time we sell that car.
Well,
totally
it's disposable though.
Yeah, it's a disposable car. But these cars do hold value, and that's the big difference, right? You spend, yes, a lot of money up front, and you do have to spend a lot of money maintaining it and insurance and all these other costs, but you're not just throwing it all away. You are still retaining a lot of that value. But traditionally, you aren't going to make money on the car.
And having said all that, if you go into it with the mindset that you're going to enjoy this car and it's just going to be part of your life now, if you play your cards right, you can do that for free.
Yeah, or cheap.
Or very cheap. You're not going to make money. At least the vast majority of people aren't going to make money. I've always done that. Every supercar I've bought, all my 911s and the Ferraris and everything, I've always took my time to find a good deal on something that maybe needed a little bit of work that I was able to do myself. I fix it up, I enjoy the car for a while, I drive it, and then I sell it and hopefully get what I've got into it out of it. So I've had that experience and it didn't cost me anything, and then I move on to the next one and you kind of just step up from there. And that's what I've always done, and it's worked.
Sure.
You just have to be very patient, and you do a lot of research, do your due diligence, and you can definitely do it.
If you look at it from a perspective of, would you be willing to pay maybe a couple $1,000s a year to experience a supercar if you lose money on it? And I would think most people are probably going to say, yeah, that sounds pretty fair. Most people are willing to spend a couple grand a year to be able to enjoy a Ferrari. That sounds pretty awesome. So if you have that mentality, you're going to have a good time. If you're not, no guarantees. I mean, you might get lucky, or you might not.
And I know a lot of guys that have Ferraris in the garage and they are stressed about it because they've got, $1 million sitting in the garage. And every day they're going down in value a little bit and they're stressed out all the time. And it's just like, that's not the experience that you want. You want to enjoy these cars.
Well, there you have it. That's our opinions. Feel free to put your comments below or justify or your opinions on it. We love hearing stories of buying cars and making money on it. We also like to hear stories about buying cars and not making money on it because, well, that's...
I've done that plenty of times.
Yeah, we've done it as a dealership, which
Yeah,
is not a good way to run a dealership. If you want to buy a car from us, reach out to us, sales@ngsupercars.com. And if you need some parts, sales@normalguysupercar.com. We want to help you guys out and hook you up when we can. But that's going to do it. You guys are amazing. Thank you so much for watching and listening to us talk about crap. We'll see you in the next video. It's going to be sweet.